Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
I'm hoping most of the parents send their kids in masks. Fingers crossed.
New school year, same worries. Why COVID has some calling for more rules in the classroom. Also,
we need to not have cases come into Canada and importing these new variants.
concern and frustration as Canada gets set to welcome international travelers. And
yeah, without them, it would mean that I would have to cut my menu or close my doors.
how retired seniors are helping businesses in one BC tourist town.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us on this Labor Day Monday. Well, it's an evening full of last-minute preparations for students and teachers across BC. The new school year starting tomorrow. But as Isabel Regem tells us, it's yet another return to the classroom during a pandemic. And some fear not enough is being done to keep everyone safe.
There's some final back-to-school shopping for the Jans family.
I'm kind of sad that we still have to wear masks. But I'm happy that we're getting longer days.
And with the new school year comes some anxiety and uncertainty.
Wish that there was obviously a vaccine that was available for kids. She's totally vaccinated because she's 12, but yeah, hopefully sometime soon.
I don't know. I mean, we'll see. I mean, who knows? Maybe school will be shut down in a month. I have no idea. But, you know, he's pretty good at wearing a mask.
The lack of vaccines available for kids under 12 is partly why the BC Teachers Federation is frustrated with current safety plans. As of now, only students in grades 4 to 12 will need to wear a mask indoors. The Teachers Federation wants that to change and for students of all ages to mask up.
We haven't been given a sufficient rationale for why not keep this free. With the Delta variant, it doesn't make sense because we see in other jurisdictions that kindergarten to grade 3 students are contracting the virus as well as older students.
Mooring says she's been hearing from teachers who are more concerned this year than last because this time around there will be no cohorts, no required physical distancing, and no exposure notifications.
The fact that they still have to wear a mask is ridiculous.
This mom to a high schooler wants the mask mandate gone altogether.
He wears it because he has to, but we're not vaccinated and we do not plan to get vaccinated.
While some universities and colleges, including at UBC, will require students and staff to provide proof of vaccination or undergo regular rapid testing, there's no requirement or declaration of status needed for staff or students of elementary or high schools in BC. The Teachers Federation says while this is our second pandemic school year, there will be some new challenges to overcome.
We haven't been in schools with the Delta variant accounting for almost all of the cases of COVID-19.
Isabel Regem, CBC News, Vancouver.
And a warning from the University of Victoria strongly urging its students to avoid gathering in large numbers on campus. Police said to break up nearly 1,000 people partying outside student housing last night. While the crowd did not technically break any COVID-19 provincial health guidelines, UVic says it's concerned and that this type of party jeopardizes a safe start to the school year by increasing the risk of transmission. The witness who took this video says some students are worried parties like this one will become normalized if the university doesn't crack down.
At the same time, I've also heard that students are anxious, especially as classes approach. A lot of students are really anxious about going back to class, knowing that this event happened this weekend.
Campus security says police did 50 pour-outs of liquor and ticketed 2 people for underage drinking. Rules for international visitors to Canada are changing as of tomorrow. That 14-day quarantine no longer required. But visitors will have to show proof of vaccination as well as a negative COVID test result within 3 days before arrival. Renee Filipponi is here now with who will benefit and the risks involved.
It's been rough times for tourism during the pandemic. In better times, half of the customers who ride this boat would be tourists, and the manager is ready to welcome back international visitors.
That's great for us. I'm super happy to see them come back, you know, as long as they're double vaxxed and playing it safe.
Back in early August, double vaccinated travelers from the U.S. were given the green light to come to Canada for non-essential purposes. And officials say the testing and surveillance program is working.
We have a lot of safeguards prior to them arriving, and they may still be selected for some mandatory random testing on arrival because we do have this surveillance program. So we feel quite confident.
We need to move forward, and we need to do it in a safe way.
This infectious disease expert supports the move, but will be watching to see if it leads to increased transmission.
We need to not have cases come into Canada and importing these new variants that are more contagious, more dangerous, or both.
This luxury resort in Tofino markets its remote location and raw beauty to an international audience, but doesn't expect a rush of guests right away.
The overseas markets, naturally, as you would expect, do plan further ahead. And they often, are planning for a vacation of 2 to 3 to even up to a month in Western Canada.
For those taking in the sun on Granville Island and enjoying staycations, there are mixed feelings.
We should wait longer. Definitely, it's too early. At least let's get this, the fourth wave pass.
I guess if you're double vaxxed and you wear your mask inside all the time, I feel okay about it.
There is still so much uncertainty as Canada takes this step out of the pandemic and reopens its doors to the world. Renee Filipponi, CBC News, Vancouver.
Activists fighting against old-growth logging on southern Vancouver Island brought their protests to Nanaimo RCMP offices today.
What do we want? Stand down! What do we want? Stand down!
Normally, protests and blockades are seen in the Fairy Creek watershed area, but today activists from Extinction Rebellion Nanaimo blocked traffic in front of the RCMP detachment. Some went so far as to glue themselves to the street. More than 800 people have been arrested protesting old growth since May.
Considering that we have the climate change, global warming, is what is protecting us to this point to a certain degree. And the last thing we want is to have them cut down. And we want to protect those old growth trees to protect the environment so we can have a safe place for our future generations and children to live in just as we have.
This month, the BC Supreme Court is scheduled to hear 4 civil applications connected to the year-long dispute. Well, some desperately needed rain fell on drought parts of Vancouver Island this weekend, but it was too brief to make a visible difference to rivers that are nearly running dry.
The ground's so Arctic. And so far the water went down bone dry.
This farmer in Chemainus says his hay crop has produced just half of a typical year due to drought conditions. In the Cowichan Valley, moisture is urgently needed as salmon are starting to make their way up the river. Now emergency measures are being planned to keep some water flowing in local rivers.
We've never seen it this dry. Our fields are hurting, lack of water. We do irrigate, but our source of water, just not myself, the local area farmers, we realize how bad the river is, and we just can't irrigate anymore.
If we don't get significant rainfall in the next 2 weeks, we'll have to start pumping water from the lake to keep the river alive. So our heritage river will be on life support.
There's fear this year's drought will lead to severe or permanent damage of local salmon habitats. All right, meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe is here now on this Labor Day Monday. Joe, turned out to be pretty beautiful today. Great for this last bit of summer holiday, but going to be pretty dry for the rest of the week, I understand.
That's right, Anita. Yeah, dry forecast ahead for the island, but also making it hard for those returning to school tomorrow. We've got more summer in the forecast, but yeah, nice that we had at least one of the 3 long weekend days. Very lovely indeed across Metro Vancouver. Let me show you the latest satellite and radar. We are not getting the rain across the island that we saw last week in Metro Vancouver. So a very different story across the strait between the island and the south coast. And this next system isn't bringing a lot of rain either. It's bringing rain to central and northern coastal sections. Over the next couple of days, we might be looking at a few showers for Wednesday morning, and temperatures will also remain at or above our seasonal mark. So summer continues, Anita, but I think I see fall in the long, long range. Those details coming up.
Long, long, long range, hopefully.
Long, long, long.
Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
As businesses across the province struggle to find staff, retired seniors in one BC tourist town are lending a hand. As Katie Nicholson shows us, they're not only hoping to keep the lights on, they're also learning a few new skills along the way.
Single burger.
This isn't exactly how Jeff White thought he'd be spending his retirement.
There's a hot pickle sauce here.
But the former realtor is pushing pickles on the Sunshine Coast.
All right.
The popular tourist destination is struggling to fill jobs. Restaurants, even those offering more than minimum wage,
You try tapping that one?
forced to reduce hours or close altogether.
And we thought, we've got the time and we've got the energy, and why not volunteer and try and help them out through the summer months?
And so they approached the Downtown Business Association.
Next thing you know, we're working in the different restaurants, doing bussing, cleaning tables, food prep, and went from there, really.
A few weeks later, and there are more than 20 retirees who have answered the call.
I'm in food prep, and it's amazing how much work there is and the length of time that the preparation takes before it gets to the food to your table. Amazing.
Has it changed the way you approach restaurants?
I think I'm going to tip more.
Working side by side with professionals who have tried for months to recruit staff.
I come from a country where we lack jobs, it's not like there's jobs available and people don't work. That never happens. So for me, it's super strange, super weird that we're offering benefits, we're offering good pay, we're offering a nice place, and all of us are friendly, I hope.
But few, if any, takers. There could be many reasons for the labor shortage.
Affordability in terms of housing, and then we've got immigration because of COVID, so we don't have those people that normally come here to work, seasonal tourism service industry. And it could possibly be something to do with the CERB, but we don't know. There's no data.
So 866, does that sound right?
What is clear, these seniors and their stopgap project making the difference between being open or closed.
Oh, good, thank you. And they have been absolutely awesome, just amazing. So I'm so happy. But yeah, without them, it would mean that I would have to cut my menu or close my doors.
And it's hardly a one-way street. While the volunteers are paid wages, which go directly to charity, the seniors are getting a different kind of payoff.
I've actually picked up some cooking skills.
Really?
Yes, I actually have, which is a miracle.
Do we get any tips? Well, I give them obviously the option to make a tip, but it all goes to some of the other staff in here, not to myself.
A chance to serve not just a community, but a sector desperately in need of a helping hand. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Sept, BC.
Thanks for being with us tonight on CBC Vancouver News at 6 o'clock. I'm your host, Anita Bathe. If you're not already doing it, you can always watch our program live on CBC Gem. That's our free app. You can also find us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Well, it may be Labor Day, but Canada's political leaders weren't taking a holiday. The highs and lows of the political campaign with just 2 weeks to go. That's next. Thanks for staying with us during our commercial-free live stream. There's something undeniably majestic in looking up to see a flock of Canada geese winging their way south. Just don't look down. People in the town of Woodstock, New Brunswick, are currently dealing with a foul problem thanks to a persistent flock of feathered villains that won't leave town. Have a look.
Well, you don't want to walk around here in your bare feet unless you want goose droppings all up between your toes. A few geese is fine, they're pretty to look at and everything, but there's a limit. What's pretty and what's a nuisance.
Kids can't really play in the backyard because of the poop. I go out probably once a week, twice a week with my little grocery bag and my little cat scoop, and I scoop up as much poop as I can find. I will fill a bag, and I remember when my husband was alive and we would do it, we would fill almost 2 grocery bags. It's not a little thing, it's quite devastating really on your property.
I'd say, I guess at the peak of the geese this year, you could have 70, 80 to 100 geese. Went to council last night and we had some discussion around the council table. I was directed by the mayor and council to reach out to other municipalities who may have a little more geese than they really want to have, try to find some best practices and taking into account all sides of the geese story and see what we can do that best suits and satisfies the residents of Woodstock.
I love them. I'm proud of them. They're our Canada geese. You know, when they leave in the fall, I sit down and I cry. When they come back, I cry. I feed them every night cracked corn, and I'm over there with a little rake cleaning up their poop. Why can't we just share it, live with nature? Isn't that what we're supposed to be doing?
If the town came up with a goose call, you would be against that.
I'll be here all night. I'll put my seat back in my Camry, and I'll have lots to eat, lots to read, and I'll stay here. The first one that comes in, I'm out there.
As a guide on the St. John River, coming down here and having to deal with all of the geese and the goose feces laying around the launch, you got to tiptoe around, and it just makes for fishing and launching your boat a hard time, I guess. It's a gorgeous downtown we have here, but when you got to walk through goose feces, then it's not good.
As a community, we have to learn to interact a little better with nature, seeing as we're living in their space, they're living in ours, we share it. Everybody's got a spot, right? And I don't know, we can't keep invading them and expecting them to move along.
Well, average mortgage rates have never been lower, and they've led to a hot real estate market across Canada. Along with it, though, has come skyrocketing levels of mortgage debt. But as Kyle Bax reports, if in the months ahead the rates go up, it could spell trouble for many homeowners.
Canadians have been able to drive down all types of debt in the last year, from auto loans to credit cards, except when it comes to mortgages. Home buyers are taking out bigger loans and more of them. The concern is if interest rates climb or if the economy continues to languish and more people lose their jobs.
The challenge, of course, is what happens in the future if that rate starts to increase, and can consumers keep making those payments, or will that push them into a kind of an area of financial stress?
Mortgage debt across the country is at an all-time high. New figures show Canadians are hooked on mortgage debt. Across the country, there were more than 400,000 home loans in the second quarter, the biggest quarterly jump on record, and up 60% compared to last year.
There's a lot of speculative behavior. There's a lot of, hey, homes only go up in value.
Adam Elgerby has several mortgages totaling a few $1 million on rental properties he owns. The key, he says, is managing the debt and not overextending in case expenses start to rise.
Once they start creeping up those interest rates, even if it's in a fraction, it starts to weigh in on your cash flow.
Mortgage debt is expected to keep climbing as the population grows, and home prices are increasing with several hot real estate markets in the country. This expert says that's the bigger problem.
Where I do believe we need to put the emphasis on is on increasing the supply of homes to meet what is substantial increased demand.
New stress test measures also came out this summer, making it tougher to get a mortgage. That should help ensure those buying a home are able to make their payments. Kyle Bax, CBC News, Calgary.
Three of the main party leaders have been focusing their election campaigns in Ontario on this Labor Day. And as Evan Dyer reports, all three of them targeted their messages directly at working people.
This is a worker city.
Nothing says Labor Day like Hamilton, Steeltown, where Jagmeet Singh chose to pitch his idea for paid federal sick leave.
We want to make sure that no one ever again in our country goes to work sick.
Hey, appreciate you. The NDP says it will bring in 10 new paid sick days for federally regulated workers, a proposal it says it's pressed the Trudeau government on in Parliament 22 times since the pandemic began. Singh also wants to raise the federal minimum wage to $20 an hour.
Happy Labor Day.
Justin Trudeau also chose a steel metaphor for his Labor Day appearance at a mill in Welland, Ontario.
We'll extend the Canada Recovery Hiring Program, which makes it easier not just to hire people, but to boost wages to address the labor shortage some sectors are facing. How are you guys doing?
Trudeau says a Liberal government will also grant 10 days paid sick leave to federally regulated workers, as well as a new $4,000 tax credit for tradespeople who need to move for work.
Canadian workers and their families are struggling.
And the Conservatives are also making promises to workers, including doubling the Canada Workers' Benefit and paying it out 4 times a year instead of once.
Making these changes will help 3.5 million families pay the bills and put food on the table. For someone earning between $12,000 and $28,000 a year, this will represent a $1 per hour raise.
Both workers and employers are emerging nervously from the pandemic, wondering how the shape of the workplace will have changed.
More than ever, those employers are coming back, pushing to cut back a lot of rights that those workers had.
From a business perspective, we're wanting to make sure that there aren't any major unintended consequences of some of the policies that the parties are putting on offer to try to court the working Canadian vote.
The biggest conflicts may yet lie ahead as the Liberal government proposes laws that would allow employers to mandate vaccination as a condition of work. Evan Dyer, CBC News, Chelsea, Quebec.
And on the campaign trail this evening, protesters hurled more than just words at Justin Trudeau. It happened as the Liberal leader was leaving a campaign event in London, Ontario. An unruly crowd screaming profanity and throwing what was reported to be rocks and gravel. Surrounded by tight security, Justin Trudeau was able to get on the bus and he left. In a tweet tonight, Aaron O'Toole condemned the actions of the protesters. Well, it may be called the dog paddle, but turns out it may not be always second nature for your fur baby. Why some are sending their dogs to swimming school next.
Here in Canada, Labor Day is simply a day for working people to celebrate their trades, their common goals, and their common struggles. But for many these days, there's not much to cheer about. Cutbacks, unemployment, and anti-union legislation have all hit labor hard, and no one seems to feel it more than the unions in British Columbia. Jerry Thompson reports.
Look for a symbol of how much labor unions have lost in British Columbia, and you find this Omnimax Theatre, built by union workers at Expo 86, right beside a non-union project on the same site. Last week, a new law declared this a special economic development zone, where unions cannot strike and cannot refuse to work beside non-union crews. And now there's talk of more union-free development zones.
I think that is the only way that we're going to eliminate some of the red tape and the problems that we're presently having and bring new economic development here.
For all unions in BC, it's been another year of struggle, with no clear victories, hardly anything worth celebrating. At this Labor Day picnic, BC government employees, those who still have jobs, now hear that Premier Bennett might try to take away their right to strike.
What the government is doing now is just part of a continuing campaign, I believe, to get rid of unions in British Columbia. This is not a happy province.
The story of Labor's battle with the Bennett government has been preserved in a documentary produced by Operation Solidarity. Solidarity plans to launch the film in Toronto next month with screenings across Canada, an effort to warn people about the effects of so-called restraint budgets.
You know, everything that's bad is in British Columbia. The worst unemployment, the worst economic recovery, the most bankruptcies, the most labor unrest, all of these things happen in British Columbia.
This year's setbacks have convinced some labor leaders the only way to win is at the ballot box. And they hope the people who supported Solidarity will still have the fighting spirit for the next provincial election. Jerry Thompson, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, maybe some of you also got into a swimming pool this weekend, in which case you would have been in the company of these next very good boys, some who were just learning to get used to the water.
My name is Ed Light. I'm owner-operator here at Dog Swim Vancouver. We have the doggy daycare in the back, so if you hear barking, my apologies. And then we also have the pool here that we use both for one-to-one rec and one-to-one therapy swims. And then we also use it for group rec swims as well later on in the evenings. It's up to the dog owners as what the dog owners want the goals for their particular dog. So for example, here with baby girl, 13 years old, arthritic hips. So once a week, baby girl comes for a half-day daycare plus a one-to-one swim just to get the exercise, to get the mobility going in the hip joints. And we do some weight loss programs for their dogs as well. It all depends on what the dog owners want for the goal for their dogs.
Yes! Oh, good boy. I've always loved to paddleboard, and I've always wanted to have a dog and we can paddleboard together. So as soon as I got Alfie, I thought it's time for him to take a dog swim class. It wasn't that much training, but just getting him to be familiar with the water and with us like around him. So we went paddleboarding, and he was really, really good with swimming and being on board. The classes is more for fun, for exercise, and just be used to the water even more. Good job!
So this is a good way to introduce them to water so they're not afraid. Some dog owners have dogs that just come out of surgery, so they come for the therapy swims there. But then we also have dogs that are only 5 months old and that we're just introducing them through the water so they don't become afraid of water. At the end of a one-to-one session, just seeing how happy, for the most part, you know, if it's a success and we were able to get the dogs in without scaring them, how happy the dog owners are when they leave.
Okay, I may be wrong, and I'm sorry if I am, but Joe, I feel like this is very you and Rodney.
I'm not ruling out swimming lessons for Rodney. I mean, he loves the water, but he loves sort of lying in the shallow end, and he has had one glorious dog paddle in his life chasing ducks. So I think he could benefit from some doggy paddle 101. Let's not rule this out. I do have great swimming weather in the forecast for the week ahead. We are holding on to the dog days of summer for another couple of weeks. Let me show you the big picture. I am tracking this low pressure system that's bringing rain to central and northern coastal sections right now, a steady rain through Prince Rupert. That will continue through to about noon hour. And you can see as that low tracks up our coast, we will look for some more high cloud tomorrow in Metro Vancouver, but it's not until Wednesday morning when a new Pacific low follows the track of the one we're watching right now that we might see a few showers. So just Wednesday morning. Right across the province, sunny summer weather for tomorrow. Kelowna 28, 26 out towards Cranbrook. Prince George 24, increasing clouds for you. Same story in through Williams Lake, and lots of sun across the island. Just a few spots to watch for. The fire danger rating is coming down as we get more of this rain. Again, most of it will be towards the coast, though, for the next 24 hours. just a couple of locations close to the border where we're actually going to get close to that 30-degree mark. But I do see a change in the weather pattern somewhere around September 15th. Do not place bets or hang your hat on September 15th, but the long range models are showing a changeover to more fall-like weather. But until then, that is your back-to-school forecast. Just a blip on Wednesday. Other than that, any back-to-school outfit goes, I would say, Anita.
I'll keep that in mind for our new September season of the show.
Exactly.
Thanks, Jo.
You're welcome.
That is it for our Labor Day newscast. You can always find our show online, cbc.ca/BC. There is no local late news tonight, but we will be back here tomorrow at 6. Have a good night.